So we're gonna talk about our top 3 picks of crypto companies in Latin America for 2025. This is how the federal government, specifically in Brazil, keeps opening up to crypto.
I think what ZK ultimately brings is just long term for a lot of these changes, a lot of scalability. There's a privacy component here as well. Um, I think this is great. Like I was so happy to see this.
Why do we need a chain in Latin America, like a Latin American chain? Hello everyone, welcome to the second frontier of the year. I was about to say the first one because last week it felt that we were in New Year's before New Year, but this is the first frontier of the year. I'm Ab, founder and CEO of Bando and founder of Espacio Crypto, and I'm with my good friend Kush. Hey man, how's everything?
Yo, doing super well, man. Excited. Second show of the year. You know, we've been grinding. Don't stop. Christmas, holidays, New Year's. We're showing up. 2025 is the year for Latin America, and super hyped and excited to be doing this with you, man. So excited for another episode. Super packed lineup. So let's get right into it.
Amazing. So we're gonna talk about our top 3 picks of crypto companies in Latin America for 2025. A couple of predictions, some news that happened this week in Latin America. We're gonna talk about a couple of events that are happening in the region. Plan B in El Salvador, the Solana Apex in Mexico. So let's start diving into the companies that we feel are super interesting and really bullish on 2025. So man, let's start. You say one and I'll say one. Which is your first pick?
I'm excited for Ripio. We're gonna talk a little bit more about an announcement that they did recently, but they've got their own chain. They work very closely with institutional partners. They've got a really robust ecosystem, Ripio Ventures. I think Ripio's really well positioned to capture a lot of the movement that's going to be going down in Latin America. Sebastian, one of the founders, really, really bullish. So I think that's one of my topics. How about you?
Amazing. Really good pick. I think in Argentina, I'm really bullish about Lemon. I think that they are the most promising wallet around in that region. And I think I consider them the top wallet over there because they've been crushing it. They're competing with Binance, they're competing in the local market in Argentina. And also, since inception, they've been really deep into the cryptosphere in the sense that I remember that they launched an NFT collection. They have a debit card, as basically all competitors in Argentina have. But I think when you talk to Argentinians, they really like their user interface. And I think that they are really cracking the DeFi mullet, fintech in the front, DeFi in the back. That makes me really bullish. And I think that they are one of the few competitors that can compete with Binance in Argentina. So I'm bullish on them.
Nice. Nice. Interesting that the first two are centralized exchanges, right? But I do think that these teams are generally going to start shifting towards fostering sort of more self-sovereign wallets and interfaces as well for folks. So the other team I've seen generating a lot of hype has been Aligned Layer. They recently did their Aligned token. They're a team out of Argentina built by the Lambda class crew very closely with the Eigen team, basically looking to enhance that ZK proofs are made on Ethereum through a whole bunch of different infrastructure and are already powering quite a lot of teams out there and have just a ton of partners in the pipeline. So super bullish, the Aligned Layer team. I think, again, just technologically really advanced and have really kind of put themselves in at the forefront of the crypto ecosystem. So that's the other team I'm excited to see them really flourish this year.
Cool. My second pick is Felix Pago. I just love their product. They are tailored and catering to a specific need for people, Mexicans in the US that want to do remittances. They are leveraging crypto rails, and the user doesn't need to know about crypto. They are using USDC as WhatsApp uses the internet, just as a rail and a communication mechanism for people to exchange information and money faster. WhatsApp uses the internet to do that, like to exchange information faster, and Felix Pago, they use USDC to send money faster. Last year in 2024, they announced their Series A, so they are a really well funded company with a really clear product, remittances on top of WhatsApp. They are also leveraging AI to automate all their flows. Actually, I'm gonna be. They're having an event next week, and I'm gonna be a speaker. They invited me because they want to have someone that is really into the crypto trenches. So I cannot say a lot about the event or anything that we discussed there, but I'm really bullish about this team.
I love it. I love it. Speaking of sort of payments, I think Mountain Protocol is another team that I'm just really excited to see kind of continue to flourish. I don't know how much you know about Mountain Protocol, but they are basically the issuers of USDM, which passes on yield to the holders of the stable coin. It's pegged to a dollar, but you can earn over 4.5% interest on holding the stable coin. So just we've talked a lot about stable coins. I think the 10x enhancement. Like stablecoins, I'd say are obviously a great product, but I think yield bearing stablecoins are even better, right? So the Martin Carrica and the other co-founders of USDM, I think are huge. And so, I think they're another team for sure worth keeping an eye on this year.
Perfect. And my final pick is Dollar App. This is another example of fintech in the front, DeFi in the back. They created the category of dollar accounts using USDC and stablecoins for Latin American people. And I know that they're gonna launch a business product line work stream. They are also launching different currencies and different countries. So I've met the team. Fernando, the CEO, is great. Zach, the CPO, is also amazing. So I also know a couple of people that are working there, and they have this approach that they are kind of mysterious, but their product is great. Whenever I need to do a transfer to the US, I use SolarApp, and obviously none of these companies paid us anything to mention them. It's just real bullishness on our side. And obviously, just to finish, I'm super bullish on Bando. That's what we're building. If I'm not the most bullish person in Bando in the world, that would be weird. Yeah, I think that what we're building is that the payments protocol to help people spend their crypto. And we're gonna do launches in several chains, several countries. By the end of the year, we'll be operating in all the chains and basically around the world, and integration and having an integration with a couple of or several big wallets. So I'm really bullish on that. Obviously, that's what we're building, and also bullish on Odyssea, man.
I was just gonna say, if I can do a fourth plug, so not just Olisea, but I would also say the 15 teams that we just accepted into our accelerator. I am so damn bullish. I mean, these are very like earlier stage teams, but we just brought on an incredible lineup of people into the program. So I'm super bullish. Everyone that's joining this program, and we got a ton of work that we'll be doing over the course of the next 10 weeks.
Let us know about that program. So we've discussed about it a couple of times, but it's gonna be a 15-week program. You accepted 15 teams. How was the process? What was the final? How did you make the final decision of these 15 teams?
Yeah, so the whole reason we even started this was basically because we observed that a lot of early stage founders that are either from Latin America or operating in the region tend to have a really hard time kind of going to market, raising capital, and so forth. So we brought together this like 10-week long program where we run from everything from, and we've discussed it previously in this podcast before, but everything from how do you conduct market research, how do you sort of take technical security into consideration, how do you raise funds, and literally everything in between that. And ultimately, what we're going to be doing here is saying, okay, cool, we want to support these 15 founders. We had a ton of applications that came through. We had sort of a four-step filter in the whole process. So it was a very, very rigorous application process. We had to turn down quite a few great teams. But I think this is just like one instance of a number of different programs that we're going to be running this year. We got a lot in the works over the course of 2025. So I'm super bullish. Just like again, as I mentioned, everyone that's participating in this program, we've got a lot of people building like DeFi, some infrastructure plays, move to earn, some gaming stuff, AI agents. So really just hitting on a lot of the really big themes for this year, and just like generally things that we know add a lot of value. So we kick off next week on Tuesday, and will end the third week of March. So excited to make this happen, and looking forward to keeping everyone abreast as far as what will be going down over the course of the next 10 weeks.
And this is the first edition of Acelera, and your plan is running it several times, or what's the outlook there?
Yeah, we'll be doing multiple instances of this program on a regular basis every year. So I think one of the fun things, and in fact, maybe we can just like plug this in as just like a little section into the Frontera podcast, is like insights from Acelera, right? And so, again, we've got over 60 advisors, world-class people who are going to be joining us. You're one of them. And it'd be really fun to just share like, hey, here's what like Ab thought about, go-to-market growth community. So we'll just like plug that in over the course of the coming weeks too.
Yeah, love it. Each week we're gonna have a ton of information, and you're gonna be next to builders, top builders in the region. Really excited to see that and how it unfolds. And let's go to what happened this week in Latin America. Some news around crypto, and the first news is that Satoshi Tango, that is a wallet in Argentina, they did a partnership to do QR payments in Argentina with crypto. Actually, their partnership is people are gonna be able to pay with crypto via QRs in Argentina, Brazil, and Colombia and Peru. And why is this important? Because what I wanna communicate is that it's not that relevant that Satoshi Tango is doing this, but I want people around the world to understand the relevance of QR payments in the region. For example, in Argentina, you go with any Argentinian friend, and next time you're hanging out with an Argentinian friend, just tell that person, como, can I see your wallet, like your physical wallet, your leather wallet? And they basically just, some of them, they have a couple of IDs, and that's it. And that's because QR payments are such a big thing in the region that they don't need any credit card, and basically they don't need any card. So the ability to convert fiat or crypto into fiat through QR payments is huge. And this is really something specific of the region. This is not something that you see in Europe, the US, or other markets. And yeah, what's your take there on QR payments in the region?
Yeah, I mean, I think QR payments are, when you use Mercado Pago, for example, it's all based on QRs. It just obfuscates the need to like sort of memorize and then share like a 10-digit number, right? So I do think that QR payments are incredibly bullish. I'd say on the other side of the equation as well, we've also got a project that launched recently whereby it's through NFC chips where you're able to transfer funds. And so you just like tap the NFC chip on your phone and immediately allows you to then sort of claim funds from a smart contract. So I think that's another like really interesting angle here as well that, I'm just excited to see like more experimentation. There was a founder that was doing ultrasound payments. They're actually going to be one of the participants in our program, but he was working on ultrasound payments to send payments from one phone to another, with the idea that like especially in sort of more rural areas, not everyone has a camera on their phone. That's definitely changing, and like more and more people do have cameras, but you'd basically be able to like record a sound and listen to that sound and transmit sort of economic value through ultrasound, which I think is just like totally amazing and really exciting. So yeah, again, QR codes, payments, all of that is like, I think, particularly needed in the region, and excited to see like more experimentation here.
I think that payments in Latin America are one of the segments that could bring global innovation because it's just a huge need. Not only international payments, but local payments. And we have this thesis in Espacio Crypto that as a couple of well, maybe a decade ago, you said, I need to do an international call. Today we say we need to do an international payment, and that international word is gonna disappear from our language because I'm gonna say I'm just doing a payment. If I need to send some money to you in Guatemala, I'm just gonna do a wire transfer, and you're gonna get it in a couple of minutes, and that's how technology is gonna work. And I think that in our region, payments are gonna be we're pushing global payments in Latin America.
For
And
sure.
moving on to the next news is around Binance. that they obtained their 21st global license in Brazil. We've mentioned how Brazil is one of the key markets for Coinbase and obviously for Binance. It's a huge country, more than 200 million people living there. It's a really different culture than in Latin America. So the focus of Binance and this new license also it talks about how Binance is really investing on compliance and also in the region. You were just there a couple of weeks ago. How did you see the evolution of Binance in the region?
Yeah, that was the first thing that came to mind was the last time we spoke about Coinbase's engagement with Brazil as well, right? So I do feel that I think it's their liquidity begets liquidity. Binance is sort of the biggest exchange globally as well, right? So I definitely think they have a right to win. I think the kind of peer-to-peer offering of Binance is really powerful and something that is incredibly useful throughout the world. So I think that's going to be one of the big drivers of success there for them. Obviously, getting this license is big. And just excited to see, like, I think for all the kind of flack Binance gets, I do feel that they're ultimately sort of a net good for the ecosystem, allow people to onboard into the crypto ecosystem with much more ease than they otherwise would. But I do feel that it's like, is the end goal for everyone to use Binance? Absolutely not, right? Like, what we want to optimize for is actually people being able to self custody their assets and so forth. So good first step. And let's also keep encouraging and supporting like players that are actually looking to onboard people in more self-sovereign ways.
Yep, definitely. I completely agree. Also, I think that a lot of crypto companies they're gonna evolve to host non-custodial wallets. Binance has Trust Wallet, Coinbase has Coinbase Wallet, and we see a big growth on those products across the world. And in the region, we're gonna see a big push of these products in the next years, I think. And another important news, a piece of news in Brazil is that the tax authorities now they request that every transaction in Brazil higher of 5,000 reales, that is around of $800, most must be reported to the regulator. Obviously around crypto, $800 transactions in crypto, and this is an interesting topic. I have my opinions, but what do you think about this type of measures that regulators take?
I think it's just inevitable, right? It's like, especially that's why a lot of governments are generally trying to push and move away from cashless societies because there's, especially specifically in Latin America, there's a huge black market, right? When it comes to sort of the way value is transacted across mercados, right, and local markets where people are just transacting in cash and therefore may not be paying at times sort of their due tax obligations, right? And so governments are just continually going to push towards being able to digitize payments. It just allows them to be able to track transactions with much more ease. Um, yeah, I think it's just like inevitable. It's happening. And the question, I think the more interesting question here is like, what role does crypto play in this, right? And like, as we shift towards more people using stable coins or CBDCs, like, what does that dynamic look like with individuals and governments and the role of privacy in this whole matter? Like, I'm curious to get your take on this.
Yeah, but it's really aligned with yours. I think that these things are inevitable, and it's weird, but I think that we should be happy about them. And why we should be happy about them? Because this is how the federal government, specifically in Brazil, keeps opening up to crypto. A different stance could be everything you cannot do transactions, right? That's the worst case scenario. And when there's clear regulation, this is how clear regulation looks like. Because uh, globally, we always discuss that we want clear regulation for crypto. And well, this is it. Maybe it's not the things that we love and it's not decentralization, but we still live in the real world. We live in the physical world, and we need to push for this type of measures that make crypto more accessible and they remove the illegality shadow from crypto. I think that's critical in the region.
Yeah, I think it's just a matter of basically this is the way that governments are this is what they're meant to do, right? Is like charge people taxes, right? And so it's just like inevitable and it'll continue to happen, especially as more payments are digitized.
Yeah, and also it prevents bad actors, and we don't want bad actors in our industry. So a way of preventing bad actors is with regulation, and that's, as you said, inevitable. And my friend, let's move on to the next piece of news. And you included this. I saw that you tweeted about Ripio moving their chain called LaChain to ZKSync. What can you tell us about this? And why is this so bullish for Ripio?
Yeah, I think there's two interesting angles here. So one is the fact that there is something called LaChain, which is basically Ripio's chain. Ripio is one of the largest exchanges in Latin America. For those of you that aren't familiar, we just spoke about them earlier. But basically, they've got a chain dedicated to Latin America. They were running it as sort of their own proprietary L1. I think there's sort of a chain sync thesis here, right? And it's just as more and more chains begin to integrate and go deeper across different verticals. Maybe they're looking for geographic distribution. Maybe they're looking for kind of working with centralized exchanges. Like we've seen, say the super chain really focused on like these big players. ZKSync has been working with Lens. Now they've got LaChain. So there's I think what ZK ultimately brings is just long term for a lot of these changes, a lot of scalability. There's a privacy component here as well. um, I think this is great. Like I was so happy to see this. Diego Fernandez, the Secretary of Innovation, published recently that over 300,000 residents of Buenos Aires got access to decentralized identities on top of ZK-Sync. So clearly, like ZK-Sync is taking a really big bet on Latin America. They've got a really solid team that's looking to push this forward. I'm super bullish, excited to see what they're building, and just excited to see more like global ecosystems engage with the region. We had Avalanche Summit a few months ago in Buenos Aires. There's a Crecimiento movement. There's a whole bunch of chains that are looking to engage more meaningfully in the region. This is the time to do it. This is the year to do it. And just, yeah, go ZK Sync team and Ripio as well. Congrats to everyone involved there.
Yeah, let me spice this up because why do we need a chain in Latin America, like a Latin American chain? Personally, I don't think that that makes a lot of sense. That's in my mental model, that's saying something similar to we need a Google for Latam. It doesn't make a lot of sense because these big infrastructure players they get a lot of network effects when they're global. And one of the most critical elements of a layer two, I think it's about liquidity. And as we've seen, liquidity in Latin America can be really scarce. So, what's your take there? Do we need a network in Latin America?
I think if you believe in the modular thesis behind chains and you believe that we need thousands, tens of thousands of chains, which a lot of people subscribe to that thesis. I don't know the extent to which that will necessarily play out, and I do see a role for modular chains interplaying and interacting with one another, and I also think there's a really great role for monolithic chains, right? So basically, like one huge chain, which is the case of Sui, Say, Aptos, Solana, etc. I do think that there's like a space for both. I personally believe that a Latin American chain is really bullish, particularly in a world where we've addressed interoperability issues and we were actually able to like seamlessly transport liquidity. Because to your point, is like liquidity is incredibly valuable, and I think ultimately the reason why many people would be drawn towards a chain or another chain, um, and I think it's what's most exciting about kind of the elastic chain or the arbitrum orbits or the super chains as well, right? Is the fact that you can, in theory, because this hasn't really happened yet, seamlessly move across chains in a very seamless manner. What the relationship across the superchain and arbitrum orbit chains and the elastic chain ecosystem look like, that I think is like a much more interesting question, and how we transport liquidity specifically for all those that believe in this modular chain thesis. So in short, I do believe that a Latin American chain is valuable. I think it's because there are multiple sinks and pools of liquidity that are not on chain yet, and being able to bring that liquidity on chain from Latin America is actually a really, really exciting opportunity, to be honest. And it's something that I'm personally really bullish on. But yeah, like steelman me the case for a Latin American chain. I'm curious to hear more about that.
Well, I think that listening to what you were just saying, I think that the most valuable thing about this chain, it's not the the end, but the means. What I mean about this is that the fact of having a Latin American chain would move the industry forward because we're gonna experiment and it's something that we need to do. In the long term, I'm not really bullish because I see that uh, building something specific for the region on an infrastructure level as a layer two, it doesn't make a lot of sense. I think it could make sense in under the environment of something like Quark ID, and I don't know, having all Argentinian uh, digital registry on chain. Okay, that makes kind of sense on a local chain that it's tailored for the region. But I think that those use cases are really down the line. So let's see how that evolves. Uh, Definitely, we're gonna look closely at how this Ripio chain is evolving.
Just to wrap this up, I do feel that in a world where interoperability and liquidity is not fragmented, I do see a world where not just a Latin American chain, but multiple Latin American chains are actually worthwhile, right? And we've already seen like CBDCs be built on these private blockchains. So if anything, it's like these chains are probably inevitable, and therefore it's how do we bring them into kind of this global ecosystem. I think we could do like a whole podcast, to be honest, on like whether or not we need a Latin American chain or not, or multiple Latin American chains. But yeah, let's happy to move on to the next thing, and we'll save that one for another time.
Yeah, yeah. This is a like a big discussion on the fundamentals of liquidity, layer twos, interoperability, and those type of things. Uh, so, a ver, let's finishing up. There are a couple of events happening in the upcoming days in Latin America. The first one is Plan B in El Salvador in January 30 and 31st. And this, as you could expect, is a Bitcoin centric conference in El Salvador. Some big speakers like Adam Black, the CEO of Blockstream, the CEO of Tether, Paolo Adroino, Elizabeth Stark, the CEO and co-founder of Lightning Labs. You're gonna be there? Are you gonna be there, man?
I will be making my way to El Salvador for this conference. I think a lot of this podcast focuses a lot on when we were just talking about like modular monolithic chains and so forth. I do
Yeah.
feel that especially in Latin America, like Bitcoin is the number one onboarding platform for folks. Like I would say Bitcoin, then stablecoins, to be honest. So I think it's not the type of conference that a lot of our audience would maybe look at, but I do feel that ultimately it's like worthwhile engaging with. A lot of the Bitcoin like heavy hitters are going to be present there, and generally just being able to like establish closer ties. I mean, it's like a 4 or 5 hour drive from where I am right now, so it just makes a ton of sense for me to head over there. And we've been super bullish on El Salvador, right? So it's like we definitely got to make our way over there.
Yeah. Maybe next Frontera we're gonna record. You're gonna be recording from El Salvador. You must tell us how it went, and also another important event, Solana Apex. These are a series of events that the Solana Foundation executes. That is basically a community event bringing some important speakers from the Solana ecosystem. It's gonna be in Mexico City on February the 7th. We are gonna be involved. We're helping the Solana Foundation team with maybe a couple of conferences. We are gonna record a podcast there with some people from Solana. We were just discussing a couple of hours ago if you're gonna come. What do you think? You're coming to Mexico?
Uh, don't tempt me like this. Don't make me do it.
No,
Uh,
you.
I I think it'll be a worthwhile trip for sure. Especially if the Frontera Espacio Cripto crew is involved. For sure we'll be heading over there.
Amazing, yes. And we're going to be reporting from the Solana Apex. And the relevant thing here is that Solana, I think it's really focused in obviously payments, stable coins, remittances. And there are also a couple of teams on Deepin Hive Mapper and Helium are gonna be there, so it's gonna be super super interesting. And man, those are the news in crypto in Latin America this week. Bullish on Acelera, bullish on the companies that we mentioned, bullish on what we're building in Frontera and Bando. Any closing thoughts?
No, this has been an awesome podcast. Lots of high energy. I think just like the rest of this year is going to be like that. And yeah, I think next week, if I'm not mistaken, or at least within a couple of weeks, we'll be getting some exciting news about the crypto ecosystem in Latin America and a big upcoming event. So hopefully, either this episode that's coming up or the following one, we'll be able to talk more about that. So stay tuned, audience.
Dude, you haven't mentioned that to me. Now I'm curious what we're gonna talk about.
Surprise, surprise.
Well, amazing, perfect. Kush, thank you. As always, thank you for your time. Appreciate everything that you're doing. And to the community, subscribe to the newsletter. We are more than 100 people now. We're going to keep grinding until we are a top crypto newsletter and podcast in the industry. And thank you for tuning in. See you around and see you at the events that are happening in Latin America. And take care. Bye bye.
Ciao, everyone. Bye.